A big hello to the entire Brokers Playbook community and our amazing audience across Canada. And we started to hear that we're getting picked up quite a bit down in the United States. So I am going to start using North America to kind of include our entire community, especially since we brought Brokers Playbook to Clubhouse. We're seeing a lot of our brothers and sisters just south of the border starting to hop in and really get value from kind of the market here, because Toronto in Canada are kind of leading the world right now in real estate growth before, during, and now as we approach, or what we think will be the end of the pandemic, we're still making the headlines all across the globe as a leading market. I want to welcome, first and foremost, a big, huge shout out to my co-host, Laura Martin. Laura, nice to see you again.
Nice to be here.
But I do want to welcome a very special guest who I think is going to shed a lot of light, both on the success that he's had in real estate as a leading listing broker of new developments across the country and across the GTA. Some of the biggest, most spectacular projects have been sold and marketed through the guidance of the company that he founded. And he's none other than Riz Dhanji of Rod Marketing. Riz, welcome to Brokers Playbook, my brother.
Simeon, really appreciate having me on, and as usual, conversing with you and Laura here. And it's always a pleasure to work with you.
Amazing. I'm really stoked for this because the ads you make are stunning. I cannot look away. They're so compelling. You create such an amazing lifestyle when you're highlighting projects. And of course, new developments are continually seeing the highest appreciation, and they're really the best bet for investors and even first-time home buyers. So I think lots of value coming our way today.
For sure. So I think where I want to kind of set the stage is Riz, you've been involved in some very, very significant projects, notably the tallest in Toronto in Aura, the Shangri-La Hotel, King by one of the leading architects on the planet, and now another collaboration with possibly the most famous female architect on the planet. And I'm specifically not saying the names because I want you to dive in and let us know what it's like to work with. Like, it would be unfair to not call them celebrities because they are the absolute beacons in their field. So I don't know where you want to start, but what I want to know is how in the world do they know that you are their guy? What have you done in your business where let me put it this way. In real estate, when you get the different listing, it's a compliment, but it's also a curse. And the curse is the fact that you don't have precedent. You can't copy what others did. You can't use other people's experiences to launch something so unique. So tell me about your mindset on setting this all up, and how did you get these listings?
Yeah, I think, Simeon, one of the things, and by the way, I don't only do iconic projects. It happens to be noted that I do that. But I think one of the differences is that the craft of project marketing, very few people know. It's not just about getting a project and saying, hey, I'm going to go out tomorrow and I'm going to sell it. It's about selling that dream of that lifestyle and the architecture and the interior design, the way the amenities go, and every aspect of it. So, my craft has been honed over 25 years of really understanding how buildings are designed and really understanding architecture to the point where I can design buildings myself. I can design floor plans. I can design interiors. And I've had a lot of experience of understanding what people are looking for in next level of design of buildings, and be able to visualize how buildings will be designed from the interior out. And that's a craft that I've honed over 25 years, where most people in project marketing have done a traditional type building. They're in and out, or they've understood how to do it, on a quickly basis or on a sales basis to get in and out as quickly as possible. Where I've learned the art of trying to sell a lifestyle that has never been done before in cities. And so I guess that's given me sort of that edge in doing unique buildings. But it's like a craftsman. It's like a bricklayer who's been an Italian bricklayer who's been doing it for 50 years. He's meticulous on how that brick gets laid, so on and so forth. And there's very few people that can copy his quality. And that's what I see as our team at Rad Marketing doing with very iconic projects around the world, and specifically in Toronto right now.
Okay, so how did this get started? Because we can get it, like I will definitely take you into some of the projects that you've worked in, because I do have questions surrounding those. And we are definitely going to go into, as a broker and as a mortgage broker in Laura, we're also first and foremost, we're investors. And we understand the value of real estate. We understand the value of what you're doing by creating an aura of lifestyle into your branding, and it shows into the product. I'm going to go back to your origin story. Tell me a little bit about how you got started 25 years ago, and how has that path been forged and twisted and turned a bit for you to get into the success that you are today?
I started my career in Hong Kong in project marketing there. I was selling Canadian real estate out in Hong Kong before the handover. I went to China actually before I went to Hong Kong, and I learned Mandarin.
Nice.
That helped me when I was in Hong Kong. So a lot of the projects that you saw in Toronto or Vancouver that were sold kind of in the 90s was probably sold by me at some time. And then come 1997, the market tanked in Asia, and I came back to Canada. I tried to get a job in Vancouver, and Hong Kong and Vancouver were tied together, so no one was buying real estate. And someone told me that I got to come to Toronto and try my luck there. And this was just when the market started to come back in 1996 or 1997. And I started my career back in Toronto, redoing everything that I've done over the past number of years. So, obviously I started with the traditional projects that everyone has been doing for the past number of years. But I learned a lot about marketing, and that was my edge, right? I could really spin real estate in a different way that most people were focused on the sales aspect. I was focused on the branding aspect and how to take it to the next level. So one of the projects that I did, which was very unique, was DNA condos in King West, which you guys have probably heard about.
For sure.
At that time in King West, it was a very industrial neighborhood. No one wanted to buy on the west of Bathurst. Was like, you don't buy west of Bathurst, right? So it was like nothing wanted. So I thought, what could we do to really do something different in this? And so we brought in 2x4 architects, was traditionally an office retail kind of environment, and they did something really cool with the building. We designed these large outdoor, terraces, and we included stainless steel appliances as standard. No one thought about that.
Yeah, like the loft vibe, like the candy factory lofts and toy factory lofts. Yeah.
Yeah, and white appliances were standard there. We made stainless steel standard. We made granite as a standard. Usually you were doing porcelain kind of tops, right? So we just elevated the design a lot more, and then we created this discovery center. Like, no one thought about that, like this massive discovery center, right? You walk in, but you needed an experience in real estate. So you'd walk through this video, and then there was this massive event center. And this event center, we would call people up and say, hey, you know what? Would you like to use this event center for free? Right? Just bring all your friends in there just to come in and see what DNA is about. And so people would come in, they would be like, oh my God, what is this place? It's really cool. So people started talking about it, and it became this huge cult following about DNA, right? Which led to DNA 2 and 3. And so that started my sort of vision of real estate as a commodity, more as a lifestyle. And so that pioneered into Aura College Park, which is Canada's tallest condo that we sold back in 2007 at record pricing at that time, 1,000 units and 80 plus stories. And then foray into Shangri-La and then into King Toronto and then One Deluxe. So that's kind of how I got my start started and then continued on from there in the GTA.
Question, do the projects choose you or do you choose them? Or does it sometimes work both ways?
Great question.
It's a very good question. Now in my career, I choose projects. Before, I just took whatever projects and tried to give it a bit of a spin.
Do what you can.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, but today, I think where RAD is today, we choose the projects that we want. We don't take on all projects. And just because we want to be able to service our clients and do something that's similar to what you do, Simeon. Like, you're very much into servicing your clients, making sure that your clients are happy. They make the returns that they're looking for. They trust your advice. They trust what you say. And you won't take 1,000 clients on because you want to make sure that the clients that you're working with, you can service them. It's the same thing with what we do at RAD. We take on a certain number of projects every year. It's usually the same clients that we have, and we service them to death. And that's what our motto is.
So it is all about the value proposition, and it's always the people who try to be everything to everyone that at the end either burn out completely or fail to deliver the value that they thought they could, even if their intentions were there. They simply get too diluted. I never thought that that's where this conversation would go, but it's only natural that it went there, and that's so interesting. Because for you to get the type of clients that you get in the type of projects, you do have to be the best at something. And I think your clients value your insight and respect the fact that you haven't watered them down by offering 3 more projects on the side, 4 more projects on the side that are similar or not similar or whatever. So I see that. I see how that happens. So it's actually easy to see now. Laura, would you say this is a direct reflection into broker houses that kind of tried to be everything again? Like, you have to really narrow down and focus on what your career path needs to be.
Everyone has to niche, right? And it's, if you're not with a certain, like, you have to be for someone, and which means you're necessarily not for someone else. So do I turn clients away all the time? I say, hey, if you could walk into the bank, you might want to try that first, for instance, because I prefer to work with complicated situations.
Because that's where you find success.
It is, yeah.
Got it. So this is a very easily translatable skill, and kind of, I think that's more of a decision that you have to make as a business decision at some point, who you want to be in what you want your brand to represent. You said early on you worked with Aura, then you went over to Shangri-La, then to King. Now we have a massive project coming to Midtown. I'm referring to my co-host's home neighborhood, Yonge and Sinclair.
Oh yeah, I was so excited, honestly. Riz, I lost it when Simos showed me the Delisle project in the car, and that's my stomping ground. I grew up right at Yonge and Sinclair, so I know that's just going to go off. I actually have a follow-up question. So, how has your marketing and branding changed as the generation that is buying these projects is changing? Do people still want the same kind of lifestyles? How is it any different, really?
Yeah, I think, I mean, if I look at Toronto in general, and I say this about most Torontonians, is that Torontonians do not feel that they are, that they deserve great iconic real estate.
Honestly, I think Toronto has a reputation for having some of the ugliest architecture in the world, which is not your fault.
No, and
But it's a thing. It's a stigma.
It does have it has very bad architecture. I got to give that, but so does Vancouver. Vancouver has very bad architecture. There's many cities around the world that have bad architecture. The difference is that in Toronto we don't feel that we deserve great architecture, right? Which is always a problem in the mindset of buyers, because when I did King Toronto, and Simeon knows this very well, people would look at the price and look at sticker shock, right? And say, oh my God, like there's no way I can buy across the street for half the price. And I said, absolutely. This is for those who want to aspire to be in the best, right? It's like those who aspire to have an amazing car like a Porsche, or whether it's an amazing piece of art, right? You aspire to have something that's unique. And so that is what this is. This is a piece of art that you're buying into. You're not buying a traditional real estate. There's many other projects in the city that you can buy that are traditional real estate. But if you want to be part of something that's going to be game changing for Toronto, that's going to set the stage for the next, iconic project that will come along, and people will move to Toronto or live in Toronto or travel to Toronto because they want to be part of that, then this is what you want to be part of, right? And so I think that mindset was not there at King, even though we've done so well. But I think Torontonians are now getting it. Like I really feel, and with the demand and the excitement for One Delisle is one of the things, but many other projects that I'm seeing, people feel like, you know what, Toronto deserves this,
Yes.
right? And so we do deserve it. We deserve it as a city. We can't sell real estate like that cheap. It just can't be built like that, right? It's just not possible, right?
And I think a lot of the Liberty Village, like vanilla stuff that came up, and then if you look at like all of the waterfront, for example, where it's this awful green glass, like that's just careless, and I think people want something that stands out at this point.
Right. And there will, and when King Toronto is completed, I don't think people will understand how much of a worldwide attention this single project will bring to the city of Toronto. I'm talking worldwide.
Yes.
And because of its so uniqueness and what Bjarke has done to this, I think people will come to Toronto and say, I'm going to go to CN Tower and I'm going to go to see King Toronto.
Yes.
And
and I think that's what the big difference maker is. So I think in a lot of this mindset that you're referring to, Riz, has a lot to do with the mindset of the brokers leading the charge, including myself, including every broker. So if you're a utilitarian broker, meaning that you're always looking at the numbers, if you're always looking for value from only one sense, it's like an appraisal. Are you looking at it from a market value? Are you looking for a replacement value? Are you looking at it from whatever value? Even the most basic piece of paper, which is the appraisal that runs this entire world and this entire business, that one will tell you three different views. As a broker, you cannot, I think this is where the playbook comes in. You cannot pigeonhole your practice. It's one thing to be into a niche market, but you can pigeonhole your views. The one thing that I can speak for myself, in my experience in these projects, because I've seen so much real estate, we've literally sold billions of dollars of real estate. With King Toronto, when I first saw it, I was flabbergasted, like amazing. I could not believe that big Bjarke Ingels is coming to this city. Because I'm a fan of architecture, so I follow a bunch of Instagram accounts surrounding design. So when his exhibit was coming here as a PR play, it's the first thing I did. So I'm a huge fan of art. And I think when you were explaining a little bit about trying to, if you're looking for any real estate, go buy any real estate. If you want to buy Bjarke's real estate, like something that's art, something that's different and unique, I don't think it's like buying a Porsche. A Porsche is buying a finer thing, but that Porsche is going to get old. That Porsche is going to depreciate. The piece of art, on the other hand, is like collecting a Rolex. Because the Rolex, you can walk into a store, wait for 6 months and pick yourself up a piece for 12 grand. But if you want to pick that piece up on the gray market Like, I mean, if you want to buy a Rolex tomorrow, you're not getting one. You're going to pay 25 grand for it.
Simeon, it's very interesting you say that, because I was watching this weekend this show called The Secret Lives of the Rich and Famous on CNBC. Okay, it's a show comes on every week. Cool. And this gentleman in LA, I think it was Douglas Elliman, the agent, had this Frank Lloyd Wright house for sale, somewhere around $16 million. And he was saying that that the house was purchased by an undisclosed buyer overseas for the full price. Okay. And so the guest host goes to him, why would someone unseen buy a house for $16 million, never seen in his life, pay that kind of money? And he said something very interesting that stuck with me that I told my team about. He says, because there's certain people in this world that are art collectors. We know that they'll pay whatever it is, they want a specific art. There's now a new trend in the world called home collectors. And these are people that are from around the world that want to buy Starchitect buildings, because they know that when they buy that piece, it's like buying a piece of art that will always be in value 10, 20, 30 years in the future, because there's only a few of them in the world. And so that stuck with me, because that is exactly what we are selling, whether at a One Delisle or at a Bjork project. You are going to buy one of 300 odd units that will only be available in the world, in that location, in this city. It's not like Jeannie Gang or Bjork Engels is doing 10 projects in Toronto. They can't do it. You can't afford them, right? That is what we are selling. If you want to buy something that you cannot find anywhere else, you are a home collector and you're buying into a Bjork or a One Delisle. And that's the unique part about what you just said, is exactly what's translating today in real estate.
And I couldn't agree with you more, because I'm seeing it, and I'm also seeing different leagues starting to develop inside both my real estate practice, because over time you start building different funnels inside your client base, and the needs of those clients are different, and the evolution of those clients is different. When I first met a group of businessmen who started making some investment, they were worth X amount of dollars. Today, they're 10x those dollars, because what we did worked. Well, their needs and their tastes and their appetite for different types of investment has now been introduced to me, where I'll get a phone call out of the blue to say, hey, man, can we have a chat? I'm like, yeah, we can have a chat. And what do they want to talk? They want to talk about buying land and redeveloping. They want to talk about getting into a Starchitect building, which you use that term and it's genius, because I didn't want to use celebrity earlier, because that's not who they are as people, but they are stars. They're the best in their field, and they're beacons and inspirational to all of us.
Right.
So these architects who have, in mind, they're not looking to become famous because of their design. What they're doing is they're trying to create amazing things to look at while improving the lives of the residents. And you can really only feel that when you hear them speak. So when you brought on Jeannie Gang a couple of weeks ago to do that introduction to the building and what her vision is and what it's founded upon, this woman is trying to bring the light magnified into a building. Like, this is her drive, is to make your life brighter, to make your experience of walking and seeing your neighbors better. So, like, she doesn't have in mind just the lines, the beautiful lines that we see, because I think so many people can do that. But to make those beautiful lines translate into a better quality of life, that is what makes her, in my opinion, unique, a star, and what a person, how lucky I believe you are to work with somebody so great at their craft and represent their interests well.
Yeah, and I think you're 100% right. I mean, these architects, Jeannie, Bjork, I mean, there's millions around the world that are, Zaha Hadid, there's so many of them that just don't look at a building as a building like most architects do. They look at the neighborhood, they look at the surrounding. For instance, when Jeannie was designing, One Delisle, she wanted to make sure that how the building came to the ground was important so that it maximized sunlight onto the street, when people are walking by, so that, your neighbors and everybody are walking by, they don't have this big, tunnel of darkness that they're walking under on Yonge Street, right?
That's
You know,
beautiful.
Things like that you as an architect would be like, okay, I've got a box, I've got a I've got a 6,000 square foot floor plate for my podium, and then I go down to 5,500 square feet, and I'm just going up, and that's what I do. That's every architect in the city would do, right? But to visualize how your building improves the environment, and improves the streetscape and improves the neighborhood, is you need someone from outside to really think through that, and give you a fresh perspective on how that impacts the entire city. And so it's really exciting to work with people like that who see that vision. Very few.
Question. Is there some things that are being incorporated? As you mentioned, it's great that they're looking at the social aspects and how they're impacting the community as a whole, not just the people that can afford to live there. But what other things are they sort of adding on to these new developments in terms of technology? We're talking about prop tech now. Is there any prop tech sort of involved, or more green initiatives? Are you seeing more green roofs or sustainable,
So yeah, I mean,
power?
if you look at King Toronto, okay, they are planting 250 different species of plants on that building.
Wicked.
Okay, think about that. So every single direction of that building, whether you're on the east side, the south side, or the west side, depending on how the sunlight hits that building and that unit, a specific plant is planted there to maximize the greenery on the sun, specific times of days.
Nice.
Okay.
The plants are matched to thrive on the direction of the sunlight.
So at golden hour, it's hitting the Japanese maple just so the red's popping.
Correct. So you may be my neighbor. You may be my neighbor, and we both may have terraces, but we both will probably have different species of plants, just because the sunlight hits your unit differently at the different times of days on my unit.
That's so thoughtful.
Think about the coordination and thought process to do that for almost 400 units in the building. Okay, that's number one. Number two is the whole building is going to have a trellis system that has vines going all the way up it. So obviously in the wintertime it won't, but in the summertime it's going to grow, right? In between, there's a central courtyard that has a misting station in between. So when you're walking through that courtyard in the evening time, it's going to be like you're walking through the streets of London.
Nice.
Okay. Now, there's a secret garden on one side of that courtyard that allows for you to reflect and wellness on one section of it, whereas a different section of it will be rock-based. And it really depends on the programming on those both sides. So the attention to detail that these architects have is why you're spending the money to be part of this unique process. You just cannot do it on a traditional building. I mean, I mean, Simeon knows I sell traditional condos. I just did a condo at Bayview, Village. I've done condos on, the west side. I'm doing condos downtown. Great buildings, amazing buildings. They're not those buildings.
That's right.
Right. And it can't be those buildings because they can't, number one, to get that kind of architect to come in is going to be super expensive. To get that zoning, the other big problem that people don't understand is the city of Toronto is very stuck on their zoning, right? You have a tall building site, you have a 4-story podium, you come back in, you're a 7,000 square foot floor plate, and you go up, and every single building is exactly the same. That's how the city of Toronto set it up.
That makes sense.
You diverge from that and you do a 1 Delisle, and you're doing a 47-story tower that starts from a 16, that starts from a square base to a 16 diagram cylindrical top. I mean, with balconies and terraces that, like, the city couldn't even wrap their heads around that. It took them 6 years to approve that project. Right?
I bet.
So what developer in their right mind will want to wait 6 years to do that? Because it just costs them too much. They're not into the game of it. So
They had to lobby, and like I'm sure there was.
So I did not run away.
Yeah,
But
I was actually trying to
yeah.
bring up a picture too. Yeah.
but in my office,
yeah,
for all to see, I mean, when something starts square and ends up looking like something out of Star Wars,
yeah,
So cool.
I think we're onto something.
yeah.
I-
And
I-
but Simeon, but you tell me, you know a lot of developers, right? If you told them you have to buy this piece of land, you're going to go hire the most expensive architect in the world. You're going to wait 7 years to get this thing approved. And then you're going to try and build this thing in a cost environment that's completely escalating. Who in their right mind would do that? I wouldn't do it. I can tell you 99.9% of developers in the city won't do it. But Slate is different. You know, Slate looks at a big picture. They own 10 buildings in Yonge and St. Clair. They're into city building program. Very few developers have this opportunity to do that, and I commend them to doing it.
So I think it has a lot to do with multiple factors. And because I'm going to very much bring this conversation back to Brokers Playbook, in order to create value to our fellow brothers and sisters in the business, as I repeated earlier, what they have to understand to answer the question that you just made, who in the right mind does that? It's not just a long-term thinker. So first and foremost, I think the key elements of selling your clients' projects and why you have to be selective, careful, and do your own due diligence as a broker, both a financial broker and a real estate broker. The reason for that is because you have to work with the strongest. The developer in this case, the 10 above and beyond the 10 buildings, they have control of the entire intersection, meaning they own every corner of Yonge and St. Clair. They're asset management company that has enough real estate to make anyone's head spin. And at the end of the day, they're making an investment in their own monopolized corridor. So they're literally creating appreciation in value across their entire asset base. So not only are they long-term thinkers for one project that will have value, they know by investing this much money in this one, just the proximity value to the landmark, just the transitional change that will naturally happen by getting an affluent residential base inside the corridor is going to lift their grade of commercial real estate. So better restaurants, better jewelers, better hair salons, better everything is going to attract higher rents, appreciating the value of all of their assets and creating ultimately an extremely sought after community.
Simeon, I couldn't say it better. 100% of what you said is exactly what they're doing.
All the way. You got to go all the way.
That's it. That's their plan.
So I think in order to be able to really understand the depth and motivation, you have to think outside what makes sense. Because people sometimes are like, we were talking earlier, if somebody told me we're going to get this piece of real estate and get the most expensive architect and get this, that, and the other, would I do it? No. Well, either would I. But when you explain the context and circumstances of the individual, all of a sudden, not only does it make sense, we're going to see this in our city.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about it because it just adds to the greatness of Toronto, which I think all the brokers that you deal with and everyone should be really excited about this city and what the next 10 to 15 years hold for the city. I'm so bullish on Toronto right now, more than any other city in Canada. And I'm originally a Vancouverite. I'm so bullish on this city. I just, it's the only thing I could tell you is that, this is the most difficult environment I have seen in 25 years, selling pre-construction real estate and working with developers.
Really? Why is it more difficult now?
I'll tell you why. We are under cost pressures, developers are. We have never experienced in my entire career. with what's happening with construction costs, which are going up 1% a month, with
Really?
development charges that are happening. Next year, you're going to see inclusionary zoning, which is going to add, I would say, between $60 to $100 a foot on land.
Let me just ask you
What
to
is
explain
that?
that, because many people don't know what that is that are not in the development realm.
Yeah, and I'm
Inclusionary
actually
zoning?
writing an article on Stories soon about that. What inclusionary zoning is what the city of Toronto has said is that any site that's coming out in 2022 that is close to a metro or within a certain distance will need to have between 5 and 10% of affordable housing in their units,
Yes.
non-subsidized by the government, which means if you buy a piece of land that's $200 a density foot and you have to put 30 units that are that we were charging $1,800 a foot, and now the city is imposing that you charge, $1,000 a foot on those or less, that difference in revenue can only be made up by adding that to the price of the entire rest of the building that's not inclusionary. And now you want to go back to a landlord and say, hey, I've got inclusionary zoning. I need you to reduce your land cost by 15% to make up for that. There's a zero chance any landowner is doing that.
So this is only if you're near a subway line kind of thing or transit?
It's going to be closer to transit, and it's going to be a certain meter away from transit. So I would say a majority of new projects coming out in 2022 will have some sort of inclusionary zoning component.
Yeah, if you're allowed to build high, you're certainly on a main route.
Yes, but the biggest problem is that we're going to have a really bad affordability issue.
As if we don't already have one.
As if we don't have already. That's why I keep telling
Yeah.
people. I think if you think Toronto's expensive right now, just wait a few years. It's going to get way.
And that's
I've been
just
saying
it.
that. Yeah.
And that's just it. So I saw that in a very big way on a few projects that I worked on. I worked with the Times Group, of a developer out of Markham. They've done some amazing commercial stuff. They put up a building, 65 Broadway, Young and Egg, just up the street. And the requirements of that building, the requirements of Untitled, literally next door, with the affordability housing component that they were forced to take in, it's just unbelievable the degree of cost that needs to be spread across for a new building to go up. And I'm not going to not acknowledge the fact that we need affordable housing in the city, and there has to be this component from a social responsibility footprint. I get it, and I'm not opposed to it, but I am opposed to not having government come in and put their weight into. If you want your city to be a place where people want to live, you want to see beautiful and better architecture, safer architecture, better features in the buildings, you cannot just take and take and take and not give. And these most people have a notion that developers are these greedy, big machines that all they care about money. And is there such developers in the world? Of course there is. But I only because of my personal relationships and experience, I can share what I know. That's definitely not the case in this city. Is there a few developers who don't care, cut corners, going for speed? Sure. The majority do not. The majority that are successful in this city and have been around for 20, 30, 40 years, delivering product in this city, do so with a conscience, do so with great quality and product. At the end of the day, whether it's the best looking architecture or not, they've delivered great projects. But what the city has done with 400% increases in development charges in the last, 5 years, in the city, can go with a straight face and talk about affordability, you're causing half of it. Half the problem is caused by the city. The red tape and delays and driving construction 3 more years than it needs to be is also driving the issue. Who is going to pay for it? You have to hold the land as a developer, pay the obscene interest on land that's producing nothing, while taking it through consistently increasing construction costs. It is very interesting to see where this goes, Riz, and I think I look forward to reading your article. Please forward it to me once it publishes in the case we miss it. I would love to share and educate our industry on these new measures, and maybe take a look at how the industry can help in lobbying slow some of these things down that are going to hurt it.
In addition to inclusionary zoning and the cost of materials obviously being exponentially more, what are some of the other factors that are driving up the cost of developments?
Well, I think the other thing that's happening is land costs are now catching up. I don't know if you guys read, but there was the 33 Yorkville, which is a project that was by a former developer, has just traded. They have to also replace the green P below that. It's almost $400 a density foot, which is, mind blowing to me on that pricing. So land costs are going through the roof. There has been no offset on land prices since the COVID pandemic. So, and I think it's going to get worse as we go along. The other thing is the delays, like Simeon had talked about, delays in the city. Right now, you literally cannot get anyone in the city to actually speak to you because of COVID issues. So trying to get a project approved is like taking at least, months and months and months longer than what you anticipated before, which is driving up costs on there. And development charges are going to go up again because the city has no more money. They're just, we're just wait till COVID ends and, we get back to more of a normal in 2022. You're going to see a big increase in development charges from what we're seeing today.
So do you think developers are going to start eyeing further and further outside of Toronto, or are they still going to try and make it happen regardless of all these barriers?
Yeah, I think there's going to be the 905 is still going to do really well, but you got to remember Toronto's a massive city, right? There's people that once we get vaccinated,
so big. There's no shortage of land in Toronto.
Yeah, there's this whole perception that people will want to live in the 905, because I can work from home for 4 days a week and come back into work. This thing, once vaccinations happen in 2022, you're going to watch every single employer is going to force their employees to come back to work. You got to come back to work, and you're coming downtown, and you're coming back there. And now you bought a house in, I don't know, Paris, Ontario, and you're driving 4 hours to get into work. How many people are going to actually do that? The city's still going to be the city. People are going to want to live there regardless of what we talk about.
All right, so you don't think people should be short-sighted here? Hold on to your hats.
Just Toronto's coming back in a big vengeance.
And, I can relate to the...
And I know a lot of people, and Simeon probably sees it on a daily basis, is that rental prices have fallen. I see it on my own units. Clients are complaining they can't get their rents. I can't get my rents. I'm guilty of it too. I've dropped my rents at least 10 times. But I won't sell my real estate in Toronto because I know over the next 5 to 10 years, it'll just be so unaffordable to buy in the city. Just take the hit that you're doing for the next, I would say 6 months. You watch 2022, borders open up. You will get.
And the hit is relative because I am having the conversation either every day or multiple times a day. We can be. So again, here's a tidbit to the broker community. Let me give any example. So if you're complaining about rents is because you closed on your units. So the last time you bought real estate would have been at least 3 years ago. If something closed 3 or 4 years ago. You follow me? Mm-hmm. So we're talking about resale existing real estate that's cash flow negative because you can't get your rents. If you bought 4 years ago, you bought for $400,000 to $500,000.
You're up.
That same condo today, right now. If not carrying it is not for you, I will give you $550 for it. I will give you $600 for it. How about I give you $650 for it? How about you call Laura or any of the amazing brokers in the city, refinance it, take the free market money out of your equity and pay your shortfall. Let the market forces carry your bleeding property so you can hold on to it. Because if you were to listen to my video yesterday or picked up a newspaper in the last week, prices are up 20% across all asset classes. in the GTA in a year
1 year.
on a piece of property that you bought with 20% down of a price that is now a lifetime ago, only short 4 years ago. So what Riz, I think what we need to drive home is you ain't seen nothing yet.
You're right.
Totally.
You're
And
right.
like
And
Vancouver's 200 grand above us on all the averages, right? So we're just a few years away from that, I would say.
I think people who do not buy real estate today are doing a disservice to themselves, a disservice to their families if they're trying to buy for kids, a disservice on wealth building that is going to be significantly more next year, significantly. And so, all I can recommend to, anyone who's, part of your group, Simeon, or whoever's listening, is buy real estate. It's just, and I think the only affordable factor is condominiums today. And you've got it. And I think pre-construction is the best way to go because you get to ride the wave as prices go up.
100%. Laura, I want to ask a real estate broker specific question. Do you have anything else market related?
Not for now. I'm good.
Okay, Riz, I want to speak a little bit about specifically Rad Marketing's elite program. How does a broker pre-construction or resale, because we do so many trainings and so many conversations on how to build from a resale business to add investment, to add pre-construction to our fellow brokers verticals into their business. What are the benefits of a broker focusing in pre-construction and specifically working with RAD? So yes, you're innovative in your marketing, client-facing, representing the developer. What are you doing to help production and help the agent community? Because you have you've invested tremendous amounts of money and time into the technology of the back end of RAD Marketing. You're not speaking to client facing, you're speaking to us. Tell me a little bit about your RAD Elite program, why you developed it, and what is your hope and aspiration that comes out of it?
So Simeon, I'm going to tell you, as the brokerage community and being in real estate, we are under immense pressure. And the immense pressure that we're under is that prop tech at some point is going to take the steam away from real estate agents making money in pre-construction. The reason is because there's a lot of smart guys that are out there around the world that are figuring out how much money in commissions are being made in real estate, specifically in pre-construction, and figuring out how they can automate that process with clients directly without going to agents, similar to what you see in the resale market, and cut out the commissions and being able to deal directly, with the developer or so on and so forth. I see it happening. I see things happening around the world that are happening around that. And at some point, it's going to come to our city, and it's going to be a problem for agents like us and what we're doing. So, I saw over the past few years, I want to make sure that the agent community that we are totally reliant on and we have relationships with, that continue to sell for RAD Marketing throughout the number of projects that we do. So what we've developed is a unique online portal that allows our top agents who perform for us to have everything at their fingertips by logging into this portal that allows them to see which projects that we're marketing on, events that we're doing that you get specific access to, all the marketing material that you have right at your fingertips. And now we're bringing in a new program that we've done an exclusive with which is called Blackline, to be able to integrate with our RAD Elite Club portal so that you can be able to sit with your client anywhere. You don't have to come to our sales office. You can pick the unit that you want. You can get this sent right to us digitally. We prepare the agreement. It's sent through you through the RAD Elite Club portal, and you can get your client to sign it. It's like fully automated on there. Our goal is that we don't need to have I don't need to have 3,000 agents working for us. Like, it's just not that. That's not my goal at Rad is. I want guys like Simeon, who are my friend, and many others, to make lots of money, to continue to sell on our projects, and I don't need 50,000 people to work on that. And so it's a unique group of people, however many that is, that continue to work with us, continue to make money, continue to be loyal to us, and we want to be loyal back to them. And that's basically the 100% basis of what that is, because I think our industry is going to change in the next 5 to 10 years.
I believe that. I believe in relationships. I think whatever prop tech has in store for our sector, I think there's going to be, just like any other sector, it takes a human component.
Correct.
The tech disruptors, Uber may have taken out taxis, but Uber is still driven by people and by relationship. Meaning that when I hop in an Uber, I didn't lose my human interaction. It was actually made better because they offered me a bottle of water on top of it. So it brought more value. And the reason prop tech, in my opinion, in real estate that has not worked so far is because they have not found a way to correlate human value into the relationship. And it's only then that will happen. So although the product is fixed, you're buying off a floor plan, you don't need to inspect it, nor can you with me. But I haven't sold a piece of real estate yet, pre-construction or resale, that somebody didn't look at me in the eyes, or in Zoom in this case, and say, would you buy this? What do you think of this? Am I making the right decision? Because to 90% of people, our job is to understand their goals and deliver value that is to their best interest.
Simeon, the only thing I would say to that is that you are a very unique, and I say this with so much respect for you and your team, you're very unique in the sense that what you said just now, a lot of other agents are not along the same line as you, right? Some people, and I'm not going to name who they are, but there are agents in this world that see dollar signs when they see a person. Whereas I and you are saying, how do we service that person to find them what you need and what will make them happy and make them come back to you for that referral that will ultimately give you money in the end, right? And that's the psychology that needs to change in some parts. And I'm not sure, I don't deal in resale, but more on the pre-construction side.
It's the same, Riz. It's the same in resale.
Okay, so I don't know, but that as if you are asking me as an agent, that has been lost for a few years, and it needs to come back to exactly what you just said, so that we can forget this disruption, because you're right, you need that human element to it.
And it will always be the case. So I think certain components will be taken down by the convenience of prop tech, like this whole iBuyer, this, that, the other. But when you peel a couple layers off the onion, you do see the inequality in it. It's an offer always that's based on an algorithm, 7 to 12% below what your house should get. If you're a home and you get that money and you don't care about the difference, that's fine. You are a segment of the market that belongs to get a 12% discount.
Right.
If you are a broker who doesn't give advice and all you see is dollar signs, I'm not going to judge you. The client never expected anything from you anyways.
Right.
So you were nothing but an order taker. And
Correct.
There's a market segment for you too.
Correct.
But when you're building a business, and
right.
This is where I want to make a difference in my life. If I can inspire someone to do the right thing for the right reason, I don't care to judge the transactor or the order taker. And I don't care to judge somebody who expects less in life than they deserve. No problem. If you are the human being who wants appropriate relationships and to have value-driven fulfillment, you can find that when you're servicing people, and you should expect it when you're being serviced. And in conclusion, because it's 100% relevant, like Laura, we talk about this all the time. There's people who call you and say, what's the rate?
Yeah.
And there's people who call and say, I have a situation.
Yep.
If somebody calls you and says, what's the rate?
I'd say, what's the
2%.
situation?
Hey, it's 2%. Click. If somebody says, I have a situation, my question is, well, how can I be of value to you?
Yeah.
It's that simple. It's that simple.
100%.
I want to thank you, Riz, for your time, for our relationship, for being you. I look very much forward to working with you this year on your next mega project that's coming. It is One Delisle.
Save me one.
I mean, there's going to be more. Laura, please go ahead. By no means.
I was really going to say, save me one at One Delisle.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty amazing project, and it's really excited for it. So it's going to come out soon.
Oh, actually, one last question. Since you sell luxury, really, you sell the image of luxury. So for agents looking to tap into that top 1% of clients that they don't need to haggle and nickel and dime and fight to explain what luxury and value is, what would you say if they wanted to pivot their business and go for these 1% clients?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I think that
do you think they're underserviced? Can anyone do it?
I think anyone can do it, and it's a highly underserviced business, especially in the pre-construction side. Highly underserviced. You think about it, you do a couple of deals at a Delisle, it's the same as doing 10 units in a typical condominium project.
Oh yeah, it's less work.
And it's less work, and you make a lot of money. So, I highly recommend that you go through your Rolodex of people, and you'll be surprised how many people. I mean, I saw it at King. They weren't super wealthy. They weren't like the top 1%, but they wanted to be part of something that was special.
They were aligned with the vision of the project.
They were aligned with the vision. So don't think that it has to be the top 1%. You just have to farm your database. You've got to do presentations to people about why you want to buy in this. And you will be surprised at how many people will want to buy into that and have the money to be able to buy it, because you never prejudge people who and what they're about. Because the minute you prejudge, you're out. But there's a lot of people that will buy that you will be surprised that they would buy. And I was surprised myself. So I think it's a great way to get
you bring up points that could unfold another hour on this.
I know, probably.
Sorry.
No, because it's true. You want to get into a new market, try dropping all your biases first.
Yes.
Try getting in tune with where people are at. I love it. And Laura, it's always you that brings these things up, because you're a champion for people being treated properly, for women being treated properly, for visible minorities being treated properly. So it's not a coincidence that these things will creep out no matter what we do. The conversation goes there.
And I can vouch for the fact that people 55 plus, they have a lot of them, over half of them, have no mortgage, right? So, they're sitting on a pile of money that they could choose to leverage should the opportunity arise. So
the problem is, Laura, a lot of people feel that that's just too much of an education process to teach those clients how to buy into pre-construction, because they haven't bought before. So people shy away from that demographic or shy away from that buyer. But I think that buyer in the next 10 years is the biggest buyer, because they're sitting on so much money.
So you brought it all onto yourselves now. I was going to go with a conclusion. 2 days ago, Laura and I were approached by Rachel Younglai of the Globe and Mail to ask of her opinion on intergenerational wealth transfer right now. What is happening? How are the mom, dad, grandpa, grandma transferring wealth for real estate purchases?
Yeah.
And we're seeing the biggest wealth transfer in history happening before our eyes.
Yeah.
And unless as brokers, we sit down and rejig our business plans and take the time to educate, that community on doing it right, you are going to miss out on hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions over your career for choosing ignorance and not putting in the time.
Absolutely. 100%. Agree with it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming, Riz. I will end with saying there's about 60% of people that are giving living inheritances now, as opposed to waiting until they pass on. So again, if you're looking at a millennial buyer, you don't think they can afford it, well, get them to do a parent shakedown and see what happens.
Again, thank you so much. Appreciate you, Laura. Appreciate you, Riz, for all your time.
Thank you.
I want to wish both of you a very, very good night. And we'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.